Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to J Cal's View. This is a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com where I, J Cal, pontificate about pro wrestling. This is my journey of my journalism. I don't know if I should still even say that. I haven't said it in a while. Maybe I'll ditch it all together in the new year. But nevertheless, you are here, and I thank you for listening. On this episode of J Cal's View, I'm giving you my point of view about the recent announcement, and I use that term recent because now we're about a week after it's been announced that Primetime Live has gone on hiatus. There's lots of reasons why, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But I wanted to acknowledge, number one, that I thought the show was great. I thought it did exactly what they intended it to. And number two, I want to just talk about how much it benefited the National Wrestling Alliance being associated with the weekly episodic pay-per-view series. And I'm going to talk about that, well, right after this. We got some bad news. And it's not horrible news. It's not the end of the world, but like many of you, every Tuesday night I've been tuning in at 6 o'clock to Fight TV to watch sometimes the National Wrestling Alliance, to watch Primetime Live, to watch some of the best unsigned free agents in professional wrestling week in and week out show their wares. And I mean, we're talking about guys like, let's face it, there was a whole bevy of talent. The Wolf's Daddies, the Bodega, Kevin Martinson, Fred Rosser, Carl Fredericks, Clark Connors, Danny Limelight, the NWA contingent. You know, we saw the tag titles change hands, the national title change hands, the TV title change hands. I mean, over the course of 12 weeks, a lot of things happen on Primetime Live. Even a new women's champion who's now wrestling in AEW. But all that being said, it was kind of disheartening to hear the news that Primetime Live would be going on a hiatus. Essentially, Essentially, the United Wrestling Network, ahead of any orders by the state of California or any embargoes or closures, they self-imposed, went on hiatus to avoid all these issues with the shutdown here in Southern California. If you guys are unaware, there is a shutdown in California suspending all non-essential operations, essentially meaning that if it's not essential, it's not open. You know, our theme parks are closed. Most of the restaurants, indoor dining is non-existent. Of course, we also have retail shops are limiting their occupancy to just what is deemed essential. So a lot of people are, of course, affected by this, but none so much more than the world of professional wrestling. Well, I guess it's not entirely true, but it does impact everybody in this state, and it has impacts on you guys, as Primetime Live is now not an option for you on Tuesday nights. With that being said, I really enjoyed the program over the 12 weeks. There was only a few missteps. I mean, I know there were some technical snafus when the show started, but those were remedied relatively quick. And like I said, we saw a lot of monumental, historic matches. I mean, we'd never seen the NWA television title in Long Beach, California. We never had seen the tag team titles change hands in Long Beach, California. I mean, there was such a turnover of the NWA Power roster, and that was all kind of within the confines of Primetime Live. Plus, we were reintroduced to talents like Fred Rosser, who you guys might have remembered from his time with the WWE, or Mike Bennett, or Sean Daivari, or Davey Boy Smith Jr. We got reacquainted with the stars of the United Wrestling Network, like Kevin Martinson, who made his name with the Rock Nest Monsters, but now was going at it on his own. We were introduced to the TV champion, Dan Joseph, the Hollywood Heritage champion, Ray Rosas, We got introduced to the United Wrestling Network Tag Team Champions. We got introduced, that's SoCal Distancing if you guys didn't know. We were introduced to Alexander Hammerstone, who, amongst other things, is the West Coast Pro Wrestling World Champion, Heavyweight Champion. So we got to see a lot of different titles. We were introduced to Lacey Ryan, to Priscilla Kelly. We met a lot of free agents along the road. I mean, we got to see Chris Masters in 2020. James Storm had his appearance. We got to see Eric Rowan, which was kind of exciting. Eric the Redbeard. So we saw a lot of cool stuff, and I really enjoyed what was happening with Primetime Live. So I am definitely saddened that it has come to a close. But the bright spots are it's not gone forever. It's just on hiatus. Of course, when things start to return to a sense of normalcy, when some of these COVID cases start declining, we will see them return to production. Of course, the much anticipated match between Michael Bennett, the Miracle Mike Bennett, and Chris Dickinson for that United Wrestling Network World Championship. And also, I mean, we've got a bevy of challengers already starting to line up. Davey Boy Smith Jr., Fred Rosser has definitely made his mark and to make his claim to challenge for that title. And of course, the other guys that were involved in the tournament, like Kevin Martinson and Eric Rowan, and of course Sean Davari. So we'll see how this all plays out. And of course, we won't be talking a lot about Primetime Live over the next few weeks because, well, there won't be a Primetime Live. But I would like to say, like, you know, when I look at that roster, and you've heard me mention a bunch of names, who was your MVP of Primetime Live? Like, I look at names like Chris Dickinson, and I know our friend Lamb over at the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood fans page, he said that Chris Dickinson was the MVP, but I think you could make a case for a couple of different guys, right? Because, I mean, like, Max Caster, who was a veritable unknown, especially on the West Coast, came to Primetime Live, and with a good outing against Chris Dickinson and a good outing against Jesse James, finds himself with a contract with AEW, now working as a tag team wrestler. Kevin Martinson went from a tag team wrestler, tag team specialist, if you will, and became a veritable threat to not only the Hollywood Heritage title, but also he got himself into the tournament to crown the United Wrestling Network World Champion. Excuse me, got a itchy nose. Then, everybody's favorite, he joined us on this podcast a couple of times, and I'm talking about Danny Limelight. Danny Limelight, you guys didn't know who Danny Limelight was a year ago, but you do now. You definitely know who Danny Limelight is. You know who the Bodega are. You've seen him in AEW. He's wrestling all across the country, not just limited to United Wrestling Network, but he's working for New Japan Strong. He recently competed in Hurricane Pro Wrestling in Texas. And, of course, he's him and Papo Esco been kind of dominating the tag team ranks in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood as of late. So, I mean, there's a lot of positive growth. And then, of course, there's Jordan Clearwater, who recently won the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood Heritage title. Levi Shapiro, who won the United Wrestling Network Television Championship. Fred Rosser, who, again, I mentioned earlier, you know, this is a guy who basically became invisible post-WWE. Now, yes, he started working with New Japan Strong, which, don't get me wrong, that is awesome. That is great. But so many eyeballs have been on Primetime Live and seen Fred Rosser, and this guy did not lose a step from his time in WWE, and I would even venture to say that he's better now than he was when his time with the World Wrestling Entertainment. And of course, who could forget Mike Bennett? Mike Bennett came to Primetime Live a desperate, broken man. Let's be honest. He was a broken man, and his quest, his entire persona was in pursuit of the world's heavyweight champion, Nick Aldis. He needed to win the title to prove to the world who he was. Fortunately, that didn't happen, but Mike Bennett did show to the world that he was ready for competition. He stepped up to the game and gave Nick Aldis a hell of a match. On our Instagram stories, you can follow us at instagram.com/The Alliance blog. Recently put a poll, and 83% of you want to see a return bout between Nick Aldis and Mike Bennett. 83%. It's pretty high. Although now there's some more complications and added wrinkles to this because Mike Bennett recently made his return to Ring of Honor Wrestling. Nick Aldis has not been back to Primetime Live since his debut on September the 15th. And, in the meantime, Bennett's been wrestling and working towards capturing the United Wrestling Network World Championship. So, there's a lot of highly talented guys who certainly have given of themselves to take that next step. And of course, there's Chris Dickinson. And I do not want to be glib on the situation because I know how impactful Dickinson has been in Primetime Live, also making his debut in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. I expect really big things from Chris Dickinson, whether he wins the title or not, whether you consider him the MVP or not. He certainly has got you talking about him. He certainly put his name in your mouth, and I think that's pretty awesome. Primetime Live is in a good place when it comes back, as long as they don't wait 9 months before they produce their next wrestling show. I think many of us are ready to get back into it. Now, just reading the tea leaves, there hasn't been a lot of NWA interaction on Primetime Live, and I don't know what that means down the road, but I certainly believe that whatever happens, whatever second season of Primetime Live, if you will, when they come back, I really expect it to pick up exactly where it left off. And I do think that the show delivered exactly what David Marquez wanted it to. If you recall back when they first announced it, his quote in the press release went like this: "To me, UWN Primetime Live is a pro wrestling fan's dream come true. I've always wanted to produce a joint program that would feature the baddest and best pro wrestlers from different promotions on the same broadcast. This fan-first way of thinking should allow us to present matchups that you might not normally ever see on weekly television. There may be a time when you see someone from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood go against someone from Chicago's Freelance Wrestling, or even fighters out of the New Japan LA Dojo versus the West Coast Pro Wrestling. A major goal we have is to take newer, up-and-coming athletes and present them in a way that has been done on a nationally televised show that hasn't been done on a nationally televised show before. With this incredible new platform and opportunity to let the greatest talent shine on a worldwide stage, we are poised to create new superstars. Factor in the NWA champions and the stars of NWA Power and beyond, all converging for some of the most exciting programming possible. In my 30 years in both television, production, and promoting wrestling, this project will be the biggest of my career." So, we got that. We got stars, up-and-coming stars. If you're a diehard New Japan fan, you know who Carl Fredericks is, you know who Clark Connors is. But if you are on the fringe and you don't know who these guys are, but they had a showcase in Primetime Live. Again, Max Caster got signed to AEW based on his appearances on Primetime Live. We know Danny Limelight. We were just talking about him a minute ago. His popularity, his abilities in the ring have been showcased not only in Primetime Live, but it's spilled over into AEW. And we're seeing a lot of that. A lot of guys who were working on Primetime Live, and gals, are now contracted to AEW. It's pretty cool. It has been a bit of a launching pad, and for that's really great for talent. Again, when the show comes back, hopefully a lot of these stars won't all be snatched up. But I do want to talk a little bit about the NWA aspect of the show, because, we should take into consideration that this show has essentially it was the NWA for a lot of people. And I know that a lot of NWA diehards were not happy with it, but Billy Corgan, going back to that press release, like he said, I'm pleased that we are finally able to announce some good news in partnering with United Wrestling Network. We'll be able to get back to work with what promises to be top-tier matches, and soon. And like I said, we got those matches. He would go on to say, it goes without saying that 2020 has been a challenging year for everyone, and our goal in reestablishing in-ring NWA action was to make sure that our talent would be protected. Working with the now established safety protocols, as well as delivering consistent, high-quality content like our vaulted shows NWA Power and 10 Pounds of Gold. But this will be more than just a weekly live pay-per-view broadcast, as we plan on shooting additional content for the NWA YouTube channel and our Patreon subscribers. My goal here is simple: to provide the best contest possible with the greatest talents available, carrying on the great legacy of the National Wrestling Alliance as an independent governing body, and in that we hope to feature at least one championship match on every live broadcast. Well, he wasn't far off. We got some great matches. Priscilla Kelly versus Thunder Rosa was a hell of a match. Allison Kay versus Nicole Savoy, terrific. Mike Bennett, Nick Aldis, I know it was short, and I know a lot of people were frustrated with that, but it was a great match. During the course of the program, we saw a revitalized NWA. They sanctioned no less than 10 matches that aired on Primetime Live. And of those 10 matches, there were 6 NWA title defenses. And we talked about it a few minutes ago, but of course the NWA should have been happy with these results. They welcomed a new national champion in Trevor Murdoch, a new TV champion in Elijah Burke, the Pope, a new World Women's Champion with Serena Deeb, as we just talked about, who crossed over from AEW to Primetime Live to win the NWA Women's Championship. And of course, new World Tag Team Champions in Stevens and Kratos. Interestingly enough, there were no other title changes during the course of the pay-per-view. Now, the other part of this is that, Billy talked about creating content for their Patreon and creating content for their YouTube. We're seeing that now with NWA Shockwave. Now, we'll go into details about Shockwave at another podcast, but I will say this, that so far, everything that you've seen from Shockwave was recorded directly at Thunder Studios as part of Primetime Live. Some of these matches that they've showcased now, like Eli Drake and Jordan Cruz on the first episode, or the second episode that featured CC Chanel taking on Camille, these were taped prior to Primetime Live first episode. So I know that there are a few more matches, or at least one that I know of for certain that was taped beforehand, but there's still a lot of these matches that are being seen now by an audience who didn't see them before, which I think is really cool. Whether you are a fan of this or not, it really doesn't matter, because the fans who did not watch the pay-per-views, which are a lot more than you think, now they have access to it. So it's kind of been a win-win situation for the NWA, because not only did they get the buzz and the pop and circumstances that go with being featured on the weekly pay-per-view, but now they get to reap those benefits with YouTube views. And again, we'll save the majority of this for another podcast, but there's reverberating effects. Those views from these videos are impacting the other views from older videos, and it's helping to grow the channel. So these are all really phenomenal things. And to put a button on it, Primetime Live was great for wrestling. It was great for wrestling fans, and I am sad that it's has been taken away from us, hopefully temporarily. And I do look forward to seeing Chris Dickinson and Mike Bennett square off for that not World's Heavyweight Championship. That's the NWA title, but the United World Championship. That should be a lot of fun. And we'll see what happens with the Bodega, with Danny Limelight, with Kevin Martinson, with the New Japan Young Lions like Carl Fredericks and Clark Connors. Hopefully we'll see more of Hammerstone in the future in the West Coast Pro Wrestling Championship, or Lacey Ryan in the Future Stars of Wrestling title, or hell, even the United Wrestling Network Women's Championship. Hopefully, very, very soon, we'll see all of that converge back in Thunder Studios in Long Beach, California, as Primetime Live returns. Well, again, thanks for tuning in, guys. You can follow us on all social medias at The Alliance Blog. That's Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch. Again, hey, Alexa, play The Alliance Blog. It works just like that. Hey, Google, play The Alliance Blog podcast. You can hear me pop up all over the place. But until next time, guys. Oh, there it is. It's going off. Until next time, guys, take care. Be safe. Get positive. Stay positive. And I'll see you at the matches.